Good morning on this Sunday, March 29th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang from a temporary studio here at Fox 5. It has been another week of staying home for most of us, and Georgia leaders tried to answer your questions in a town hall meeting broadcast across the state. More cities, including Atlanta and some counties, made their own decisions to order residents to shelter in place. And could there be another delay in Georgia's presidential primary? House Speaker David Ralston is pushing for it. The rest of my Georgia Gang members are not here. They're coming to you from their homes or offices as we continue our social distancing. Theron, Phil, Janelle, and Kathy, this is another first. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Governor Kemp is defending his decision not to order the entire state to shelter in place. So, Phil, I want to dive right in. The governor has come under fire by so many people for this decision. I mean, I thought the governor made a point about he's the governor of the entire state. He's not governor of Atlanta. He's not governor of Metro Atlanta. And I really think you could see in the town hall just how difficult these decisions are.
Well, Lori, I think the town hall was a good idea, and I think there needs to be more of them to keep information flowing to all Georgians. And to your point, I think that he made the reiterated point that different locales have different conditions. And so I think he said there was dozens of counties where you haven't had any coronavirus at all. And so obviously Metro Atlanta, he admitted that yes, the mayor did the right thing when it comes to sheltering in place in Cobb County and other places that are hot spots. But I think the information was good to get out there, everything from when the schools were going to be closed through April 24th to basically we can't have people in groups of over 10.
Theron, let's have you weigh in here because the governor mentioned that as of Thursday, there were 50 counties in Georgia that had no confirmed cases of the coronavirus. Some of your fellow Democrats are still calling for a statewide lockdown. Do you agree with them?
Well, I would tell you this, Lori. I have evolved over the week. Last week when we were on the gang, I said that, listen, he's got to take a sort of balanced and measured approach to this crisis. But now as I continue to see the countless amount of people who are testing positive, I'm hearing from friends and loved ones that they know someone who's either tested positive, and I even know a couple people who have a loved one who has died. I think that he has got to look at this very, very closely to eventually seriously consider a shelter in place for the state, because even though you have 50 counties that have not had one person test positive, it is not unlikely and it's very likely that someone can drive to that county and go to an event or even just do something and could take that to that county. And so while I know that there's 50 counties that have not had one case, I do think the governor's got to seriously consider a shelter in place as we move forward.
Janelle, weigh in on this because last week you said you would be okay if the governor did this, quote, kill shot and ordered this statewide lockdown. Is it too late at this point, do you think?
No, I don't think it's too late at this point. I still think that there needs to be a kill shot, but I will say that I have also went back and forth with this. I honestly think at this point, after watching the town hall, that maybe the kill shot should be towards counties that are showing a high number of cases. I do think that right now we're at a crossroads where we do have to start looking at the economy and the state of the economy and jump-starting the economy. And with that being said, there should be counties that are the counties that are not showing any type of cases or any issues. Maybe those counties we should push forward for them to stay open and continue to open their businesses and keep revenue coming into the state. And then maybe more so look at the counties that are not. And then to the county leaders who have already done this, kudos to you. To those of you who may need a little kickstart, that's where the state, the governor can come in. But we got to protect the most vulnerable by getting our young and healthy back to work.
Kathy, there seems to be this really big debate between the economy and public health, and kind of this is the crux of where we are. We heard Mayor Bottoms on Thursday night say if she could shut down the whole country, she would. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think she's probably got the right idea on that. And, Viruses don't respect county lines. We have learned that lesson over and over again across the world, certainly, here in this country with the HIV virus. And we don't have enough tests, and frankly, we've got too many counties. So we're looking at these little teeny, spots on a map and saying there's not a case that we've tested yet. What we want to do, if we want the economy to thrive, is to flatten the curve as quickly as we possibly can. And you can't do that by eking out the control measures. You've got to stop it right now. And if you look at Ohio's got 1 million more people than Georgia does, but they have half the number of cases and a third of the deaths that Georgia has because their Republican governor put extreme measures in place several weeks ago. That's just one state. There's other states I could come up with, but I can't remember the numbers that easily. And I do want to correct last week I said that expanding Medicaid would cost $35 million. I got that number wrong by about $100 million, and thanks for the person who sent it. But again, in Ohio, they expanded Medicaid for $135 million here in Georgia. We could cover almost 600,000 people and bring in $3 billion in money to hospitals that need it right now. Not to expand Medicaid right now is absolutely ridiculous.
We're going to get into this Medicaid fight in a little while, I hope. But Phil, Kathy had mentioned the Republican governor of Ohio. I feel like there have been some portions of this debate, at least in Georgia, where it's been politics aside. I thought the governor was very careful to say, I support cities and counties who have made their own decisions. And we saw Mayor Bottom say, I'm not going to criticize the governor for this decision. So weigh in here about the politics of all of this.
Well, there's going to be politics obviously involved in this, and I have to laugh at Kathy. She's always pushing for Medicaid, for Medicaid, Medicare for all, and of course it costs billions if you just look at it for a 10-year period. And Governor Kemp, to his credit, it's underreported right now, but he applied for these waivers from the federal government, so especially low-income people can get some coverage. But it was nice for a while when we were doing bipartisan things, and I think we can still do a lot of bipartisan things, especially at the federal level as we tape. But I think that so far we need to be focusing on both the economy and jobs. I know we're probably going to be talking about the terrible job losses that are coming up in Georgia, but I think we still have to have a measured approach, and that's what Governor Kemp did.
So since you all are going this Medicaid route, I want to ask you, Theron, if Georgia had expanded Medicaid under Obamacare the way some other states have, would hospitals like Phoebe Putnam and Albany, which has just been overwhelmed by the number of corona cases, would they be in better shape, do you think?
Well, of course, I'm going to say yes, because I'm a huge supporter of Obamacare. I definitely think it's helped hundreds of millions of Americans have access to affordable health care. Now, let me be fair. I think that while, yes, it would have helped them give these patients an opportunity to be insured when they go to these hospitals. But let's keep in mind what Kathy is also saying, and we've said this on this show for a long time. We have been saying that the rural hospitals in particular, they need more funding. There are people that have to drive over 30 miles just to get to their closest hospital. And so I do think that if Medicaid was totally expanded, we would be having a different conversation. But I'm sure that there will be people talking about the overflow of people that are actually being able to come to the hospitals. But the one thing I want to get in here, Laura, is this, and to really kind of piggyback on your question around Obamacare and Medicaid expansion, is that we've got to continue to pray and recognize the doctors and the ER doctors, the physicians, the medical staff that's on the front line, not only in these rural hospitals, but right here in Atlanta, that are basically, running the risk of getting affected with this virus. And so, again, I think that at the end of the day, we're here now. We got to figure out a way to allocate funds to make sure that people have adequate health care, and more importantly, that our medical professionals and staff have the resources they need to serve these people.
Janelle, just real quick, I want your last word on this.
Yeah, I just think we need to take a time out for a quick second on the political pushes and all of that, and just focus on what's happening right now. The economy right now is really, really taking a hit. To talk about anything that requires putting any more strain on the budget or the economy or whatever that is, I think it's just counterproductive. I think right now we just need to focus on making sure that the American people have what they need so that we can move forward and get through this.
All right, thank you. Well, coming up, we discuss the hit to Georgia's economy from the coronavirus. Stay tuned.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
I'll tell you, driving to the station, it's really eerie. Hardly any cars are on the road. Stores and restaurants are shut down, empty parking lots. It feels like Georgia's economy has come to a standstill. Janelle, I want to start with you because unemployment claims in Georgia are just soaring. More than 12,000 Georgians filed for unemployment. That's more than double the previous week, and it could be 5 times that number this coming week. Now, the state is extending the number of weeks that you can collect unemployment from 14 to 26. But, Janelle, what else is there to do?
Well, I think when I looked at these numbers, the first thing I thought is that this is why it is super important for us to start talking about sustaining the economy and creating a plan to jumpstart the economy. For those people who are really, really pressed on the health aspect of it, I think that is super important. I think we all understand that health is the number one priority, but this economy is a close second. And I don't think that we should villainize people who are thinking about how we can start getting Georgians back to work. Because the fact of the matter is, if we don't deal with this right now, what the people during the Great Depression saw in 3 years, we will see in 3 months. And that will be devastating to this economy and to America as a whole.
Kathy, let's get your perspective on that, and then we'll go right to Phil.
Well, it's a terrible time, and it's particularly a terrible time for small businesses. Most small businesses in America only have about 10 days of financial reserves. And if business stops, then money stops coming in. I will say that the relief packages that have come out of Congress do have some really important provisions, and if you are a small business owner, check with your local banker because they are being empowered to process no-interest loans that you won't end up having to pay back if you keep people on payroll for the duration. This is a really important thing. Check it out. It may apply. It should apply to you, but if it doesn't, it's just worth your time to figure it out. We've got to keep money going. And if you do have a job, if you are financially secure, try to find a way to frequent your local businesses, the small business owners that you rely on every day, the dry cleaners, the restaurants, other places, because a lot of them have the ability to do takeout right now. And even if you don't want to do the takeout, buy a gift certificate or heck, just tip the waitresses and waiters that the servers that you like every week. Just send them a tip just because you care about them.
And Phil, along the lines of really this budget debate and the state budget, the teachers' retirement system has lost $15 billion because of this hit to Wall Street. And some legislators are now calling for changes because they say at this rate it's just unsustainable. What do you think about this?
Well, that's right. The legislature has been suspended, and they're going to have to be thinking about getting back into session at some point in April, and they're going to have to figure out whether they're going to be doing it a virtual legislature or because you're raising a very good point about the pension system and the hemorrhaging of money. I will say, Kathy alludes to what the federal effort is going to be with regard to pumping money into businesses, and of course that's a $2.2 trillion bill. It's very unfortunate that the Democrats held it up from last weekend. It should have been implemented already, so money could be flowing. But hopefully this weekend we'll get it done. And I think to reiterate what she said, a lot of my friends that I know that have small businesses are already going to the Small Business Administration and are going ahead and getting some loans. And you talking about 50 counties earlier that don't have the coronavirus. It seemed like Theron was kind of poo-pooing that when he was changing his position, but that could be shattering the economy in those 50 counties. Just to continue to take that example, we don't want to do that yet. We want to go with this measured approach so far and see if this curve flattens where we don't have as many infected people or deaths.
Theron, I want to go right to you to respond to that.
Yeah, it's not a change of a position. It's really me evolving like many people in the state of Georgia. I mean, at the end of the day, one of the things that my good friend Phil Kenneth got to understand is that people are dying. I want to say that again. People are dying. It's beyond just people getting affected.
I knew that.
It's beyond containment. And so at the end of the day, we've got to basically make sure that we keep people alive. And as a small business owner, like all of us on this panel, is that I am thinking about my business and I'm thinking about the people that I employ. But what I'm putting first is the safety of the people that we employ. And I think many of these small businesses and many of these large businesses, we will recover. We will rebound. That's what makes this country so great. But at the end of the day, when we heard Dr. Toomey and others share with us at the town hall that the numbers that we're getting are actually not even that accurate, they're actually more because we are getting more testing. Folks need to know if they have the coronavirus or not, because the more people that get tested, the more people that know, they will stay home, they will quarantine themselves, and they won't spread it to others.
But Kathy, the longer people stay home, the more anxious they're getting about paying bills, and they've got this added pressure, and we're going to see this stress. And I think President Trump alluded to suicides and heart attacks. And what about that aspect also?
Well, it's a difficult time. I mean, I think people are, there are lots of people who are alone right now, who don't have anyone in their household. There are other people who have too many people in their household, have kids that, need to, be homeschooled for all intents and purposes, that still have to work if they have their jobs, and then are taking care of loved ones in other parts of the state that they have a hard time getting to or they can't get to at all. So, this is a great time for people to reach out and call people up and have a chat and just try to check on people's well-being, because it is a tough time. And I think anxiety sort of comes and goes depending on, sort of where you are in your day. So
it does. Very good thoughts.
Let's just help each other out.
All right, well, coming up, proposed changes to the law when it comes to members of Congress and the stocks they can buy after our 2 U.S. senators are accused of conflict of interest.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
Some members of Congress are calling on changes to the law when it comes to their colleagues' stock portfolios. This after both Senators Perdue and Loeffler here in Georgia were accused by some of buying and selling stocks after a private briefing on the coronavirus. Now, both deny any wrongdoing. So, Phil, the spotlight here was really on Senator Loeffler because her husband is also chairman of the New York Stock Exchange. There are limitations for federal judges and leaders of federal agencies. So should these same rules apply to Congress?
Well, I do think that the best thing that any senator or any lawmaker can do at the federal level, if they're being charged with malfeasance, is to immediately demand a Securities and Exchange Commission investigation. And I think that might be something wise for Senator Loeffler to do. Even though I don't think there's anything to it, she's obviously involved in a political race in November, and I think what's going to happen is that you're having opponents on the left and the right saying that she's done wrong, and she adamantly denies any wrongdoing. So I think, and also, there was a congressman just a year ago that was indicted and convicted for insider trading, and he's sitting in jail. So there is a legal mechanism if you can prove that there's insider trading. I think there's been no proof at all in the case of Senator Loeffler so far.
And Janelle, you have defended Senator Loeffler and her decisions, but overall, should senators and reps, U.S. reps, really be allowed to purchase individual stocks?
Well, let's start here. So I personally don't think that this has anything to do with Senator Loeffler or Senator Perdue. I think what this reveals is that the American people have been conditioned to a status quo where it's almost acceptable to allow people to profit off of the backs of Americans. And when I say that, what I mean is that there are a lot of elected officials that have been in office for 20 and 30 years, meaning that they have not worked a job other than being an elected official for that long period of time. And yet and still they live in million-dollar homes, and we see their net worth continue to climb, and no one asks any questions. So that's not alluding to the fact that there is something wrong going on, but I will say that is a little bit suspicious, right? So the American people have been conditioned to this. So when you have two elected officials that come into the office who already come with a portfolio, who does not need to get rich because they're elected, who does not need to profit off of the back of Americans. It is something that's kind of hard to process. And I just think that it's a wave that we're going to have to just ride. And what I'm hoping comes out of this is that we understand the benefit of bringing new blood to the table and understanding that their business sense in general is what's necessary and what's going to actually get us through this hump and this crisis that we're facing right now.
Kathy, is this just something that we have to get used to, like Janelle has said?
Well, gosh, I hope not. Unfortunately, I think sometimes it is. But look, in November, people will have the ultimate ability to make these elected officials accountable. In a U.S. Senate race, you're not voting in gerrymandered partisan congressional districts or state house districts. It's the whole state. It's one-on-one. If you don't like it, don't vote for the person.
All right, I want to switch gears here, Theron, if that's okay. This week, House Speaker David Ralston has asked for yet another delay in Georgia's primary, going from May 19th to sometime in June. What do you think about that push?
Well, I think what the speaker is considering is, number one, he's thinking about his caucus. Keep in mind, Lori, right now, legislators cannot raise money. And so until the session is over and we don't have any sort of end date in sight, I think what the speaker is saying is that let's delay the election a little longer to give people the opportunity to get out of session and raise money, but also make sure that the people of Georgia understand that they have the right to vote, but give them a little bit more time to vote. But I'm also hearing that there are some folks within his Republican caucus that sort of disagree, that they think we should keep the election where it is and just continue to work very hard and expeditiously to make sure that the public is getting all the information they need. I do want to commend Secretary Raffensperger again for sending out absentee ballots to all of Georgians. And so we do have an opportunity to vote by mail. But I think that the speaker is going to continue to push this, and I think that in his heart of hearts, he's not trying to add any more confusion, but I do believe that he's thinking about every single state elected official to give them an opportunity to finish session, which is their obligation to their constituents, and to move on.
I want to interrupt here because, Phil, I just want you to weigh in rather quickly because I'm getting the wrap.
Well, I think that the Speaker's request is dead in the water. I think that Secretary Raffensperger, even Thursday, has said that's not going to happen. It's going to be on May 19th for the party primaries and the nonpartisan judicial races. And campaigns, think about it, have already set May 19th. All their literature is out there, their social media. I think it'd be a great disservice. And I'm told by lawyers that legally the Secretary of State cannot do that. Only the legislature could change the date.
Okay, we'll be watching that one. Coming up, everyone, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
I think it goes without saying our winners, of course, are the frontline workers fighting this war, the doctors and nurses and all of the healthcare officials who are fighting the coronavirus. And thank you for all of your hard work. I also want to thank this television station for pulling this off. They have been working around the clock to get us on the air. Everybody from Bill Schneider, Scott Stuckey, Darren Pash, Lori Lyon, Mark Neely. Thank you all for making this happen. And Theron, we'll go to you.
Thank you, Lori. My first winner is going to be Miss Eva Davis. I've been in Atlanta since 1996 when I attended Clark Atlanta University as a freshman, and I've been here ever since. And I thought that I really knew a lot about the Atlanta history, but I want to encourage all of our viewers to look up Miss Eva Davis. There's a wonderful documentary that just came on in PBS called East Lake Meadows. It's about the public housing story in Atlanta, and she's definitely a person that I'm learning more and more about. I had an opportunity to speak with her granddaughter Shannon, but I wanted to make her my winner and all the great work that she did up into 2012 when she passed. And then lastly, I want to wish my beautiful and lovely wife, China Johnson, a happy birthday. Baby, I'm sorry we couldn't take that trip for your birthday, but we will definitely plan it and get it in next year.
Happy birthday, China. Phil.
Well, I want to echo, Lori, what you said, too, about the medical personnel that are stepping up against this coronavirus. And I think, aside from the doctors, nurses, medical staff, I think we really need to give a shout out to those lab technicians, med techs all around the state. They really are on the front line. I'm going to shift gears a little, though, and make us a loser. I don't know why the liberal Atlanta Journal-Constitution continues to downplay the gang crisis in the state that Governor Kemp has rightly focused upon in the tougher prosecutions and jailings. There was a story, I couldn't believe it, in the AJC by Joshua Sharp and Christian Bone. It said, the headline, will the push to lock up gang members make prisons more violent? That's one of the dumbest stories and headlines I've ever seen. Where are the stories on the victims of violent gangs? So those are a bunch of losers. Let's talk about getting tougher and locking up people who are violent gang members.
Okay, Janelle.
Okay, well, real quick, I want to make sure I clear something up. I did not say that we should get used to elected officials profiting off of people while they're in office. What I did say was that we should be open and get used to having elected officials who do not need to profit while they're in office because of they're already are personally financially set. But move on from that. My winner this week are all the businesses and CEOs who are using their wisdom, creativity, and divine intervention in order to weather this storm. I know that it is a tough time, especially for those who are responsible for employing people. And so I definitely want to give a shout out to all the small businesses.
All right, Kathy.
I want to give a shout out to Dr. Carlos Del Rio. He's one of the world's foremost infectious disease doctors, and he's right here in Atlanta at Emory University. You know, we really have sort of the center of public health here in Georgia, and Dr. Del Rio has really been, you know, out there clarifying what needs to happen, and that we do need to really shut things down quickly so that the economy can resume as soon as possible.
Okay.
I want to just thank him for being that voice.
Okay, and we're going to wrap it there, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you again next week.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.